The 2025 M4 MacBook Air might be as close as you can get to the perfect computer for just about everyone. Apple crammed tons of power into a slim, lightweight design that has never been more affordable. It may look familiar on the outside, but the M4 chip is a whole different beast. The leap from M3 to M4 is the biggest jump in performance since the original transition from Intel processors to Apple Silicon. Here's my review. If someone needs a Mac, you always start with the MacBook Air. It's only if they insist that they never need to take it anywhere that you recommend an iMac or Mac Mini instead. Only if they're a professional graphic designer, video editor, programmer, or in another such trade, that you tell them to get a MacBook Pro. Ever since Apple began putting its own custom-designed chips in the Mac, the MacBook Air has had a sort of elevated status. It's no longer just the cheap one or just the lightweight one. It's now powerful enough for nearly everybody's daily work. It just so happens to also only weigh 2.7 pounds and get 18 hours of battery life. I bought the entry-level MacBook Air, the one nearly everybody will be buying. For $999, you get a 13.6-inch Retina display, 256 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigabytes of unified memory, 2 Thunderbolt 4 or USB-C ports, a 30-watt MagSafe power adapter, Wi-Fi 6E, and Bluetooth 5.3. There's no longer an old MacBook Air artificially lowering the entry-level price point. The $999 model is Apple's latest and greatest. And in the Apple Education Store, it's an even cheaper $899. Thankfully, all MacBook Airs now come with 16 gigabytes of unified memory, so the only spec you're likely to upgrade is the storage. 256 gigabytes of storage can feel pretty cramped if you use a lot of pro desktop apps. Upgrading to 512 gigabytes of storage only costs $200 and comes with a slightly nicer M4 chip. Upgrading to 24 gigabytes of unified memory costs an extra $200, but you're not as likely to need that. And upgrading to the 15-inch display also adds $200. The M4 MacBook Air carries on the design of the prior M2 and M3 models. That is to say that it no longer has the iconic wedge shape it donned through the 2010s, but instead looks like a slimmer MacBook Pro. And it is much slimmer. The body, without the feet, is thinner than an iPhone 16 Pro. The rounded body and squared-off lid means your hands no longer get confused about whether you're grabbing the top or the bottom. You can feel the different edges. It's attractive, well-balanced, and lightweight. The feet on the bottom are a little thick, raising the MacBook over the surface of the desk, but hopefully offer a degree of protection if a drink is spilled on a table nearby. Though I did not test that myself. The hinge continues to be the best in the industry, holding the display perfectly still, while it's easily adjustable with a single finger. The keyboard is fine for a laptop keyboard. I felt a little clumsy typing on it since I'm used to larger keys with more travel. It's odd that it no longer has keyboard backlight brightness controls as F5 and F6. And if you set up your MacBook Air from the backup of a desktop Mac, you won't find the keyboard brightness control in Control Center. You have to add it yourself in System Settings. I feel like I would use the keyboard brightness control more often than I would use dictation or do not disturb keys, but you can customize it yourself using an app like Carabiner Elements. The large trackpad is absolute perfection. It's completely smooth, frictionless glass. The Force Touch feature with haptic feedback is unparalleled. The palm rejection, which prevents your wrist from errantly tapping the trackpad while you're typing on the keyboard, is flawless. Of course, I had to order the new MacBook Air in its new color, sky blue. In the lighting of the Apple Store, it actually looked about as blue as its promotional images online. When you take it home, it's more of a cooler silver. It has more color to it than Starlight, but it only looks blue in the brightest of rooms. You know how when you're at a fast food restaurant and you want to get a cup of water, but the fountain drink machine only has a combined water and lemonade dispenser? So you press the little water lever, but a little squirt of lemonade comes out in the beginning, and so your cup of water is like slightly off. That's about how blue it is. Apple has previously stated that the reason it doesn't use bolder colors on its computers is that in practice, users find the colors to be distracting. And that very well may be true. The iMac is super vibrant on the back, but more muted on its face. But any parent will tell you that at some point, you just need to let the kid make the mistake for themselves. Let them eat too much sugar for dinner once so that they get a little sick and don't ask again. Apple should release an obnoxiously blue MacBook Air that's as blue as the Blueberry iBook G3 just once. Some people will buy it. Some people will realize that it was a terrible mistake. Then either Apple can pare back the colors and people won't complain anymore, or it will have been so popular that Apple will have been proven wrong. It's a win-win scenario. Even on Apple's entry-level laptop, the company can't help but make a fantastic display. It's a bright 500 nits, which is plenty bright for a well-lit indoor environment. While the M4 MacBook Pro puts out a brighter 1000 nits for outdoor use, I had no trouble at all using the M4 MacBook Air in broad daylight on a clear day. In fact, I wrote this very part of the review outdoors on my back porch. The MacBook Pro also supports HDR, and while that's also absent on the Air, its P3 color gamut gives you over a billion vibrant colors. The 13.6-inch Retina display has a resolution of 2560 by 1664. While it's a mid-sized laptop, the high resolution and slim bezels gives you plenty of desktop space. You can run it in a scaling mode for even more space if you need it, if your eyes are sharp enough, although text will be slightly fuzzier. You have enough room to passively use the Pro apps that typically demand acres of screen real estate, like Affinity Photo, Final Cut Pro, or Logic Pro, but you probably won't be bouncing between them side by side as you might on a desktop. If you use these apps regularly and plan on doing so on the go, I'd recommend the 15-inch model. But of course, it's not all about the built-in display. You can plug in up to 2 6K desktop displays in addition to the built-in display. Now, all I had on hand to test it with were 2 5K displays, like some kind of filthy peasant, but I ran each in a scaling mode to get the gist of 6K resolution, and I was absolutely swimming in screen space. And thanks to the magic of Thunderbolt 4, a single cable can connect you to both displays while charging the computer and powering extra accessories. You can keep your MagSafe cable permanently tucked away in your bag for when you're on the go, and instantly dock your MacBook when you're at home. My only complaint is that the headphone jack is on the wrong side. Most headphones are wired up to the left ear cup, so most headphone jacks are on the left side. But the headphone jack on the MacBook Air is on the right side, on the opposite side of all the other ports. But it's a mild inconvenience. The M4 chip is capable of handling much more than the MacBook Air comes with. The Mac Mini, for example, comes with 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports and 2 USB-C ports, HDMI, and Ethernet. But the 2 Thunderbolt ports it has offer all the connectivity you'd ever really need. With Apple Silicon, the MacBook Air continues to defy all expectations of performance. It continues to astound me what a device so impossibly thin is capable of. I timed various tasks I do in my regular work. I rendered a video in Final Cut Pro, exported an episode of the Cultcast, created an AI transcription using Mac Whisper, ran a benchmark test in Xcode, and ran a data mining Python script via the command line. It seems I can now get better performance out of this thin, fanless laptop than I can out of my M2 Pro Mac Mini from just 2 years ago that I spent much more money on. That is trickle-down performance. Unlike performance PC laptops, the MacBook Air performs identically when it's plugged in as it does on battery. In fact, I completed all these tests unplugged over the course of an entire morning, and the battery had only drained to about 94%. And it's under 3 pounds, and it's under half an inch thick. The difference could not be more stark. The camera is fine. It's good enough for the occasional meeting or FaceTime call, but it's too grainy and smudgy for much more than that. It now supports center stage and desk view, both of which are excellent features. The speakers are plenty loud for personal use, watching a video, but unsurprisingly, they're pretty tinny with virtually no bass. Apple has slightly tweaked the keyboard icons. The mute icon now has a slash over the speaker, making it easier to differentiate from the volume down icon. The symbols on the Command, Option, and Control keys are now aligned outwards of the spacebar rather than inwards. Also, the underscore symbol has been lowered relative to the parentheses and plus symbols next to it, making it more obvious that it's an underscore and not an en dash. Most people, if they own anything other than a phone, keep one additional device. And if you decide that device should be a laptop, the MacBook Air is the best choice there is. It's light as a feather and powerful enough to handle everything I could throw at it with absolute grace. Although personally, I don't have room for a MacBook in my life. I always plan on having some manner of desktop Mac to run my Plex server and store my media libraries, and I'm happy with my Apple Vision Pro for handling lighter work and home entertainment. If I were to add another form factor to the mix, I would add an M3 iPad Air for its unique capabilities as a tablet. But still, I was impressed by the MacBook Air. It's good to know that the vast majority of people who prefer using a laptop still have an excellent choice. I'm Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac.